The ACU football season begins with a bang as the Wildcats travel to college football powerhouse Fresno State. I'm Sharon Morosky.
And I'm Grant Boone. We'll preview the Cats and Dogs and look ahead to ACU's third season in Division I. It's the Ken Collums Show right now. Welcome to the season debut of the Ken Collums Show presented by Lawrence Hall. I'm Grant Boone, joined by senior journalism major at ACU, Sharon Morosky, a returning starter back for a second year as co-host, and the fourth-year head football coach of the ACU Wildcats, Ken Collums. Coach, a brand new season is upon us. We've got a new presenting sponsor, Lawrence Hall, a new home for the Ken Collums Show, KTAB, a lot of excitement. And tonight, you take on Fresno State. And what a matchup it should be. Take me through some of the emotions you're going through with this game upon us.
Well, everybody's ready for a football game. I mean, all across the country, the Texas Rangers have played their 300th game or so, and baseball is great, but you know, it's time to play some football. So everybody's looking forward to game one every single year, and the fact that we get to go to Fresno State and open it up, everybody's excited.
Coach, in your first season in the Southland Conference since 1972, you ended with a 500 record, 6-6 overall, 4-4 in the conference. What did you learn about your team's ability to perform and compete in the conference?
Well, it just solidified in our minds that, you know, we belong in the league. And, you know, our goal wasn't to win a certain amount of games, you know, the first year, because you don't know the lay of the land even. You're just going to go in, you know your product, you know you're going to play well, but sometimes winning and losing depends on those guys lined up across the field. You know, are they in a groove? How well is their quarterback playing? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into winning and losing. Our goal was to go in and establish credibility, and we did that. And I think we established credibility, but I think we also added value to the league. And I think if you ask other coaches and other teams that, they value us being in the league. So I'm proud of the way we played last year, and our guys played hard. They were really fun to watch. As the head coach, I was a big fan of theirs because I love to watch them play, and because I knew them as players and I knew them as people. And then you watch them on Saturday perform with all that passion. It's really a neat deal. You know, we let a couple games slip away, but that's going to happen against good people. So we're hoping to build on that this year.
You also took a couple of games away at the end from other teams.
That's
and
right.
Got them,
That's
including one who wound up going to the playoffs. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about that great season last year, the first one back in the Southland Conference, and we'll look ahead to this 2015 campaign. It's the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall, right here on KTAB. Glad you're with us. Back here on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall. Last year, ACU's first season in the Southland Conference since 1972. The Wildcats went 4-4 in conference play, tied for 6th with a couple of pretty good teams in McNeese State and also Northwestern State. You can see how bunched up the standings were. Coach, let's talk a little bit about last year, kind of doing a end of the season report card as we think back to that 2014 campaign. You, for a second consecutive season, started a quarterback who had not started a game, and for a second consecutive season, you got tremendous production. It was John David Baker in 2013. Parker McKenzie was asked to do some things and against some opponents that not many ACU quarterbacks have been asked to do. How did you think he did overall?
I thought he did well, and that you measure a quarterback with their consistency and if they don't turn the ball over, period. Regardless of whatever you do in any offense, every quarterback has the opportunity to make a bad decision almost on every play and to turn the ball over or not protect it on every single play. I mean, all across the country. And ours here, they're going to make good decisions and they're going to protect the ball. And he just happens to be an accurate passer. He's instinctive. You know, he's a little guy, so he's got to use what he can. He can change his arm angles. He can make throws on the run, and he has to do that. And so we were proud of his production. He had a couple of hiccups there in games where he turned the ball over, but by and large, he went in and answered the bell. We were proud of him.
22 touchdowns and only 9 interceptions. He caught a touchdown pass.
That's right.
Yeah, or caught a pass for sure. Coach, he also, again, the level of competition. These were big men, large human beings he was going up against, night in, night out in the Southland Conference. That had a big impact on his performance as well.
Yeah, defenses in the Southland, by and large, they're going to be twitchy. They're going to have depth when you can take a front four out and put in the next guys, and they're still a quality outfit. I mean, you better be sharp. And the thing is, because of that, you're going to catch heat as a quarterback. You look at good defenses all across the country. They're going to put pressure on passers, and he had to put up with that last year, but he delivered.
Looking ahead to this season with Parker, he'll start the game against Fresno State, but he's got a guy that's really pushing him, doesn't he, in Dallas Seeley?
Yeah, Dallas Seeley, he's had, he's a redshirt freshman for Lawton, Oklahoma, and he's done really well, and he has earned the right to play a little bit. So we'll pick our spots and get him in there and see what happens.
In terms of the running game, Coach, you went into the season with Herschel Sims, a guy that you had some knowledge about, obviously from Abilene High, but he had played at the high Division I level and also on the FCS level. You didn't exactly know what you were going to get out of DeAndre Brown. Well, he showed you what he could do. He went for nearly 1,000 yards rushing, capped by a 256-yard outing against Stephen F. Austin in the season finale. Named second-team All-Conference last year. At the end of the year, preseason first-team All-Conference. He really emerged, I thought.
Oh, he did. He averaged 7 yards per carry last year, and that's tops of any running back in the entire country. There was one other guy that had more rushing yards, average rushing yards, but he was a quarterback. So, DeAndre is a talented guy, and the thing is, you look at his snaps. He's instinctive. He knows how to lessen the blow. A lot of guys take big hits, and those guys don't have good careers. They don't have good seasons because they're always nicked up. But he has a knack for lessening the tackle, because those running backs in college football, they get pelted. I mean, these linebackers and safeties can run and hit. But one of the bigger things is he protected the ball. He does a really good job of protecting the ball, and Herschel likewise. I mean, he's a quality back, and if you're gonna run the football for 11 straight weeks, you got to have more than one running back. So we're in a good spot as far as our running backs.
You bring back a very experienced group of receivers, led by Cedric Gilbert, Cade Stone, Jonathan Epps. He's out there on just about every play, receiver, cornerback, special teams. But when you add Jamie Walker into that mix, Coach, there's some reason for excitement, isn't there?
Well, yeah. Anytime you have senior receivers, we have 5 senior receivers, and a guy that has had a really good camp is Monty Green. And those guys are playing consistently, and it really, really helps our quarterbacks. And they catch the ball consistently, and we're going to be able to do different things scheme-wise with them that we may not be able to do with the younger group.
It's the nature of college football. You always welcome new guys in. You say goodbye to some guys who meant an awful lot to you. You say goodbye to one of the very best pass rushers in the history of ASU football, Nick Richardson, second all-time in sacks, 32.5, and a great leader, I thought, of that defensive unit. But you also bring back a very experienced defensive line, and coach your linebackers with Lynn Grady, Travis Tarver, and the youngster, the sophomore, Sam Denmark. That's got to give you some encouragement in the front seven, doesn't it?
You bet. It's going to start with your D linemen. Football is about big people. It's about pushing and pulling and expanding space and compressing space. And guys like Dylan Douglas, who played some last year but has had a great camp, he's going to cause people some issues. LaMarcus Allen's a talented guy in the middle. But when you look at those linebackers, I mean, you're going to see some guys that play with passion. They know what they're doing. They're twitchy guys with good speed. They're going to give people some issues.
Heck of a season coming up. You open at Fresno State Thursday night. You finish with another non-conference game against Northern Colorado, but 9 straight Southland Conference games in the middle. It's going to be a grind, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Southland Conference, and we got a taste of it last year, but we know that if you play well every single week, you'll put yourself in a position to where you can win the game in the fourth quarter. And likewise, if you don't, the other team's going to have a good enough program and a good enough coach on the other end to possibly outcoach you too.
Should be a lot of fun. As we go to break here, take a look at the preseason rankings in the Southland Conference, and you'll see that ASU is picked 7th this year, and Sam Houston State, which has won the conference in 3 of the last 4 years, is right there picked to win it again. Stay with us here on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall.
Welcome back to the Ken Collums Show. While ASU football starts its 2015 season tonight, other Wildcat sports have already begun their seasons on the road. Here's Jonathan Rates with the JMC Network Sportscast.
The Wildcats started their weekend with a loss to Big 12 member TCU in 3 straight matches. The team rounded out its trip with an Arizona team that finished 5th in a talented Pac-12 a year ago. Here are those scores. The team continues its early season road trip when it travels to College Station Friday to play a few more tough non-conference teams, including SEC powerhouse Texas A&M. The ACU women's soccer team began its season with a handful of losses on the road. The Wildcats returned 17 players from last year's team and welcomed 12 new faces. They started the season with a trip to Tucson to take on the fellow Wildcats of the University of Arizona. Despite falling 0-4, ACU played Arizona tough in the first half, trailing by just a goal at the half. ACU was back in action just 2 days later when it faced the UTEP Miners from Conference USA. After 80 minutes, the Miners broke a deadlock with the game's only goal. The Wildcats were led by senior goalkeeper Kelsey Dombrowski, who recorded 7 saves and kept the score even for most of the game. The team competed over the weekend when it traveled to Austin and College Station to take on UTSA and UC Irvine, respectively. And here are those scores. While the Wildcat football team begins its season tonight in Fresno, California, reporter Hannah Knoll has a look at some of the new faces on the team.
The Wildcats have been hard at work during fall camp and look to have their 10th consecutive season with a record of 500 or better. We caught up with Coach Collums and some of the incoming players to see how it's going.
Biggest transition from high school to college, I'd say, is probably the speed of the game and the size. The guys are a lot bigger out here and it's a lot faster, but it's a lot of fun getting to learn and kind of adapt to the new speed, and it's a lot of fun learning from the older guys too, and they're really cool and teaching us young guys stuff, so it's been a lot of fun.
It's going to be harder than they had ever imagined. Everybody thinks, oh, Coach, I've got it. Well, they're going to, it's going to be tough on them, but the thing is there's enough to them because we do our research when we recruit. We don't throw out scholarship offers just because the guys are big and fast. We want to know who they are. So we've got the right guys. These guys are going to help us win in the future, and then some of them are going to help us win this year. But the main thing is man, they're out here practicing hard. They're messing up, but they're making new mistakes, and that's all we ask. Now, hey, you're always going to make mistakes out here. There's a whole lot that can happen when 22 guys are out on the field at the same time, and but just make a new mistake.
For Optimist Sports, I'm Hannah Knoll.
Thanks for watching the JMC Network Sportscast. See you next week. I'm Jonathan Rates.
It'll be exciting to see how the freshmen show off their talent in tonight's game. Before our first game in Fresno, I got an update from Athletic Director Lee DeLeon on the ACU Athletics Department and the progress of the stadium construction. There have been a lot of new hires. Going into this, what were some of the requirements you were looking for in these people, and what's the reasoning behind all that?
Great question. And the first thing I look for is, do they love Jesus? Do they have a strong commitment to their faith? Are they on board with the mission of what we do? Do they view their job in college athletics like I do, which is as a ministry, a way for us to make an impact for Christ through college athletics? And so as long as they are on board with that, then we can talk. I also want people that work hard. I mean, this is a grind, and you've got to have a great work ethic. Otherwise, you're gonna drown. And the sheer volume of games and events and the hours that are required to do this job and to do it well is huge. And you have to have a very committed mindset and mentality going into it. Otherwise, you're going to get burnt out and you're going to get frustrated and you're going to get angry. And so, again, those three things, the faith component, the enjoyment of what we do and the positivity associated with that, and then really good work ethic as well.
Bringing it back to the ACU and Abilene communities, the football stadium. It was announced on Facebook, lots of hype around it. We can look at the beautiful new science building going up.
Yep.
The football stadium got delayed a year.
It did.
But nonetheless, there's progress being made. So can you give us an update on that?
So right off the bat, one of the first decisions I made was to change architects. Okay. And so that's what set us back, is we were pretty far down the road with these architects, but we just did not feel like moving forward it was the right partnership that we wanted. So we looked to find new architects, and then we decided upon HKS, which is out of Dallas, which is one of the biggest and best sports architecture firms in the country. They did TCU Stadium, they did Cowboys Stadium, they did the University of North Texas, so they're very familiar with this part of the country, and they've done great work. And so we decided to go in that direction, but they basically started from scratch. And so that's what delayed the opening of a new stadium from 2016 to 2017. We're very comfortable and confident that we're going to be ready for the first game in 2017, which is against Houston Baptist on September 19th, I think. And so we've got 2 years to get this thing ready. We plan on breaking ground in January.
Okay.
We are finalizing our designs and our schemes as we speak. The most important thing, Cher, that we're looking to do is finalize the budget. And the budget's a moving target. I mean, it's expensive, and costs change frequently depending on the availability of labor and the cost of materials. And so it's very difficult to pin down a final budget that Dr. Schubert's comfortable with, that our board is comfortable with, that our lead donors, the Anthonys, are comfortable with. And so right now what we're doing is we're trying to come up just with a design that everybody likes and is comfortable with.
When we come back, we'll see what Coach Collums has planned to take down the Fresno State Bulldogs. Stay with us on the Ken Collums Show.
Back here on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall. Take a look at the schedule around the Southland Conference. You'll see a couple of other Southland Conference teams taking on FBS programs, including Sam Houston State, the preseason favorite in the conference, going up to Lubbock to take on Texas Tech. And how about McNeese State at LSU? ACU at Fresno State tonight. It's the first time that the Wildcats have taken on the Bulldogs since 1963. That game was originally scheduled to be played on November the 23rd, but the day before President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, the game was moved back. ACU went out to play Fresno State and knocked off the Bulldogs. Haven't played them in more than 50 years. Coach, Fresno State since that time has become really one of the storied programs in college football, especially if you talk about schools just outside those Power 5 conferences. Super Bowl winning quarterback in Trent Dilfer. They had a #1 overall draft pick in David Carr. They've got a guy a couple of years ago who played for him who's now the starting quarterback for the Oakland Raiders. This team has accomplished quite a lot. I'm making you nervous, aren't I?
I appreciate that. I wonder where you're going
with all of
I'm
this.
getting nervous.
But this really is a team maybe as good and accomplished as any team that ACU has ever played.
Sure. I'm quite sure this will be the best team that we've ever played and the best program.
Yeah.
Last year we go to Troy, and when you say Troy, you think of football. The same thing. You hear at Fresno State, you think of football. We've all watched Fresno State on the late games on a late Saturday night. I've talked to the coach Pat Hill, a former
Sure.
coach of theirs, for 45 minutes the other day, and I'm like, well, it's partly your fault, Coach. I mean, y'all don't ever lose at home. I mean, you look at the history of their home wins, and they get people in there, and they don't lose at home.
Coach, talking specifically more about the game, your offense, you're going up against a defense whose head coach has a history and a track record of creating tough, solid defenses. What kind of challenge is that for your offense, and what's the #1 thing that they need to do?
Well, our #1 thing, especially going into game one, is because they hadn't played a snap. Fresno hadn't played a snap. We haven't either. So we're both kind of feeling each other out here, kind of dancing around at the first. But you do what you do. You do what you do well. You use your tools the way they were designed to be used. I'll sit in here and talk about that every single week. But in game one, you don't try to overdo things. You stay within your plan. Have a smaller, defined game plan, and you go in there and try not to overdo things. When you go into a big venue in a big atmosphere like that, good players are hot competitors now, and they may try to overdo it. And when you do that, and you get outside of kind of your limits and what you feel comfortable with, you end up making mistakes. So the thing is we got to go in there and just play well, play clean. We were the most disciplined team in the Southland Conference last year. You look at like pre-snap offensive penalties, pre-snap defensive penalties. Jumping off sides, doing crazy things that set you back. We were the #1 team in the league, so we're going to be a good team this year. if we go out there and play well, it'll be interesting.
Parker McKenzie was in that spot last year, making his first career start. Big environment, Georgia Dome, national television, and he threw for 400-plus yards and,
That's right.
and 4 touchdowns. Coach, about your defense going up against their offense, they've got a little bit of a scramble at quarterback. Zach Greenlee is going to get the start. He emerged out of a quarterback competition this spring and this fall. But they like to go fast, don't they?
They like to go super fast. I mean, they like to set people's hair on fire. They move so fast, and they've got a good running back. And the easiest thing to do when you move fast is get those defensive linemen a little bit tired and give the ball to their running back, and he'll just 5 yards a pop, 5 yards, and then they'll mix in some play action and a little bit of quick game. And they've got some lengthy type receivers where they're gonna take some shots down the field, but. Our guys, our defense will be ready, and they're going to light up. Coach DeRuiter he's a really good defensive coach, so we'll have to play well on offense.
Should be a lot of fun. ACU takes on Fresno State in the 2015 season opener out at Bulldog Stadium in Fresno, California. Central Time. The kickoff is 9 p.m., 7 o'clock Pacific Time out there in Fresno. Lance Fleming and I will have the radio call for you on the ACU Radio Network, beginning at 8:30 Central Time. Hope you can join us for that. For Sharon Nemorowski and for Coach Ken Collums, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the season debut of the Ken Collums Show presented by Lawrence Hall. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll see you next week.